If you've ever felt like a horrible parent, or if you find yourself worrying about all the issues you're going to give your kids, today's video is for you. I'll be sharing some information that probably isn't what you'd expect. If you're like most parents, you've probably had some quiet time at some point to sit and quietly reflect on how wonderful it is to have children, how blessed you are to be part of their growth and their development, and how badly you keep screwing it up. We've all been there. Those times when we lose our temper because our children are acting like children, or when we realize just how much we've become like our parents. It's really not a fun place. I have no idea how many times concerned parents have come to me and shared how worried they are that they're going to give their children issues that they'll have to deal with for the rest of their lives. My response to this is always the same, regardless of the situation. Yes, you will give your children issues that they'll have to deal with for the rest of their lives, and there's nothing you can do about it. The reaction I get to this sort of blunt truth varies from person to person, but surprise is fairly universal. I try to alleviate some of that shock and surprise by asking a very simple question. Do you know any person at all, who doesn't have some issue in their life that they picked up from their parents? I've yet to receive any answer other than a simple, well, no. You are going to screw up your children. Every parent has, every parent will. You'll either screw them up the same way that your parents screwed you up, or if you're the creative type, you'll come up with some new and inventive screwiness to pass along. Even if you're able to recognize all the damaging things you do, make the necessary corrections, and never make the same mistakes again, you'll undoubtedly do something else without even knowing about it that your children will see as the source of all of their future problems. I think a personal example illustrates this point really well. I grew up with parents who were very strong in what they believed was right and wrong. And they were not shy about sharing that belief about what was right and what was wrong, what one should and should not do. And they were also not shy about disagreeing with anybody who saw it differently. And I, of course, picked up many of these traits from my parents. I developed as one who was not shy about having an opinion, and was not shy about sharing that opinion, and was not shy about disagreeing with others who viewed things differently. As I got older and went through school and started interacting with my peers, this started to be a problem for me. And of course, I saw all of this as the fault of my parents. If only they had raised me differently, if only they had not been so passionate in their beliefs, and if only they had not instilled those same beliefs and passions within me, I would be able to get along better with my peers and with other people. These types of feelings persisted with me as I grew and went into adulthood and then went off to college. At that point, I started thinking about moving on with my life, starting a family of my own. And it was very important to me that I not make those same mistakes, that I not create for my children a situation in which they would become too passionate and too opinionated. It was at this time that I met a beautiful young woman named Candace. Candace was everything I was looking for. She was attractive, she was fun, she was smart. And most importantly, I found out that Candace had never once seen her parents argue or disagree with one another. As was consistent with my belief at that time about how people grow and develop, Candace had become an easygoing, easy to get along with, generally pleasant to be around individual. Married life was wonderful. I was as opinionated as ever because Candace was fine with pretty much whatever. Until she wasn't. Now, I have no idea what that first argument was actually about, because in my mind, it was something so very trivial. I disagreed with her, we had a little back and forth, and that was it. I moved on and didn't think about it again. So imagine my surprise when, a few days later, Candace came to me and emotionally suggested that we needed marriage counseling. I had no idea where this was coming from. I was shocked and surprised, but she was inconsolable. She was convinced that things were going horribly wrong in our marriage because we had had this horrible argument. No amount of assurances from me could help her to feel better or help her to believe that things were normal within our relationship. Eventually, she decided she needed to call her mom to get some guidance on how to convince me that our marriage really was on life support. Candace later told me about how that conversation with her mom had gone. She called her mom up, laid out the details of the argument, and emotionally expressed how distraught she was that this had ever occurred. She was surprised at her mother's reaction when she said, "Well, that doesn't sound like much of a big deal." Candace, of course, needing to help her mother understand why this was so harmful to her, went on to explain that perhaps her mother didn't understand how damaging the argument was because her mother and her father had never had an argument. Her mother, of course, laughed outright at that suggestion and told Candace that of course they had had many, many arguments. They just never argued in front of the children. This was a shock to Candace's system. Never had she imagined that her parents would have been arguing when they had their private conversations. With that revelation, Candace started to believe that maybe, just maybe, it would be okay in a relationship for there to be disagreements and even sometimes arguments, and that a relationship could still survive. As surprised as Candace was to learn that her parents were not always of one opinion, I was even more shocked at the revelation that dawned on me. My parents disagreed with each other in front of me all the time, and it gave me issues. Candace's parents never disagreed in front of her, and it gave her issues. I realized in that moment, as a parent, you can't win. You will give your children issues if you do A. You will give your children issues if you do B. You will give your children issues no matter what you do. Now, as I became a psychologist and received more training in human development and the way that children grow, learn, and understand the world, I started to realize something. It's not that parents can't win, it's that this is not their game to play. As an adult, you've lived your life and had experiences that have taught you the right way to live and the right way to do things. Now, it's your children's chance to learn, experience, and grow. No matter what you do as a parent, you'll be giving your children the opportunity to misunderstand and misinterpret the world that they're living in. And that's exactly as it should be. Children learn through their mistakes. Wouldn't it make sense that many of those mistakes would be blamed upon the people that they spend the most time with? As a child, I learned to communicate a certain way from my parents. Candace learned also how to communicate from her parents. Now, those two lessons were very, very different, and as a result, we have different issues as adults. I now sometimes disagree too passionately with other people. I express my opinion too forcefully, and it causes problems. Candace, as an adult, had the opposite problem. She felt like she couldn't handle conflict, like she needed to always agree, and if there were any problems at all, it suggested that the relationship was in danger. Neither one of these problems is to be blamed on our parents. They're just different issues for us to navigate through as people as we learn to grow and develop and become better. I've needed to learn to moderate my opinions. I've needed to learn to express myself in a more conciliatory manner. Candace has had to learn to be okay with conflict and to be okay in a relationship even when there's disagreements. The same is true for your children and their specific struggles that they'll have later in their lives. It's not about your parenting, it's about their opportunity for growth and development. Of course, there are good, better, and best parenting practices, and I encourage everybody to take the time to learn as much as possible about the best ways to parent. But even if you were the perfect parent, as if something like that even exists, you can't begin to anticipate the issues that would give your children. Think about that for just a moment. You would be the perfect parent and never make a mistake for this child who is not perfected, who has not had the opportunity to learn perfection. As a psychologist, I can certainly imagine your future child, the product of your perfect parenting, on my couch, telling me about the unrealistic standards that have been set by my parents. My parents were so perfect, there's no way I can ever live up to that. For now, relax. Accept your imperfect parenting while always trying to be a little bit better. Love your imperfect children while always trying to help them be a little bit better. And sit back and wait to be blamed for all of your children's future problems. As you look to learn all of the best parenting practices you can, I would humbly suggest that this channel is a great place to do it. Our focus is to consolidate all of the best parenting practices possible so that you can find everything you need in one place. So take just a minute, like this video, subscribe to the channels, and turn on those notifications so that you can find out when we've posted new content. Research has been clear about what's actually necessary in order for parents to help their children grow and develop into well-adjusted adults. And it's actually just two things, two very simple things. First, parents need to love their children. I'm pretty confident that that's one we can all check off, because if you're taking the time to watch this video and learn best parenting practices, chances are you're doing it because you love your children. Second, parents need to be involved in their children's lives. You need to take the time to think about what your child enjoys and then participate in those activities. You need to be there to discipline your children when they inevitably make mistakes. You need to be there to enjoy the good times and the bad times. If you're spending time with your children and you're involving yourselves in their lives, you're doing step number 2. And that's it. There's just two things. The research has shown that if a parent loves their children and they stay involved in their lives, all of the rest is extraneous. All of the other things that we do to try to enrich our children's lives can be good, but they actually can just as likely cause issues for your children that you can't anticipate. Love your children, stay involved in their lives. The rest of it, you don't need to worry about, because no matter what you do in all of those other areas, you will be giving your children some sort of issue that they'll have to deal with for the rest of their lives. And that brings us to the 3-2-1 for this video. 3 things that I think are important to take away from this message. 2 minutes for you to sit and think about what's most relevant to you in your life and to your family, and then 1 thing that you're going to focus on and really practice starting today. For my 3 important takeaways for this video, first, almost every parent worries about giving their children issues. If you're scared of that, you are not alone. Second, every child has issues from their parents because every child is immature and misinterprets the world that they're living in. As they misinterpret that world, the blame inevitably gets placed upon the parents. So no matter what you do, you will be seen as the cause of your child's future problems. And finally, number 3, as long as you love your children and stay involved in their lives, you can relax about the whole giving them issues thing. You will. Now I'd like you to set aside just 2 minutes. 2 minutes to sit quietly and think about how this message is relevant to you and to your family and to the way that you parent your children. How can you relax a little bit more about giving your children issues and accept the fact that that's going to happen? Perhaps you can think a little bit about ways that you can love your children a little bit more and be involved in their lives a little bit more. After all, those are the 2 most important things that we need in order to raise healthy adults. Once you've taken those 2 minutes to sit and think, then I want you to pick that 1 thing that you're going to start doing today, and I want you to type it into the comments. As an incentive to actually type it into the comments, again, I will be going through everything that's posted in that comments for the next week, and I'll be selecting at least 1 individual to follow up with, to ask them how are they doing, to offer coaching and assistance in whatever way I can. This is something that I do because it's really important to me that you actually take these steps and act on what we're talking about. That's it for today's message. I hope this information has taken your stress levels down a few notches as far as giving your kids issues goes. You are going to give them issues, and that's okay. Children don't need perfect parents, because if they did, there would be no successful people in this world. Children don't need perfection, they just need love, and they need your involvement. So until next time, you've got homework to do. Thank you so much for taking some time to watch today's video. I hope it was beneficial for you. If you haven't already, I encourage you to go to the channel homepage to check out all of our other videos. You'll find a lot of good information to help you improve your parenting game. Of course, it's not going to stop you from giving your children issues, but at least you'll be taking a step in the right direction.